Chris Young asks, is it nice to write the Horus Heresy novels knowing you don't have to worry so much about who's going to die and when and how, or does that kind of take the mystery out of it? Well, yes and no. There are key characters that we all know about, the Primarchs, the Emperor, this kind of stuff, who take part in the Horus Heresy, and we roughly know when their various fates occur and under what circumstance. We know the key events. And the purpose of writing the Horus Heresy novels is to add flesh to those bones, to increase the cast, and this was a vast galactic event which involved billions and billions and billions of people. So we are inventing characters to play a role in that, to show how it affected every level of society. So, for example, Loken is the main character of Horus Rising, and now everybody identifies as being one of the crucial characters in the Horus Heresy. You know, he was created there as a vantage point for the first books. So there are loads of characters already, and there's an increasing number as we go along of characters who are absolutely fundamental to the Horus Heresy, who you don't know when they're going to die and how they're going to live and all this kind of stuff. Also, a lot of the deaths are shrouded in mystery. The fates and dooms of certain things are shrouded in mystery. Even the ones that we know fairly well, they have a mythological feel to them about exactly how they're going to take place. I'm not suggesting we're suddenly going to change things and say something happened that you don't think happened, but even telling the stories that you think you know the ending of may end up feeling rather different. Lee Marshall asks, who are the main protagonists that you'll be concentrating on in Know No Fear? Well, it's Ultramarines versus World Bearers, and this book is well, actually, this is the second part of your question here, and from whose viewpoint are you more aiming to cover, Ultramarines or World Bearers? Okay, let's do. It's going to be more Ultramarines than World Bearers because my sort of POV is with the people who are surprised and attacked, and the World Bearers are the threat. It's not to say that World Bearers won't play an important part, but it is an opportunity really to look at the Ultramarines who haven't had a book to themselves. So we'll get both Primarchs, obviously. On the World Bearer side, we'll have Argol Tal, we'll have Corferon, and we'll have Erebus and all that sort of stuff. Ultramarines, Mr. Ultramarine Primarch himself, of course, and Ventanus and other characters that you know historically should be there will be cropping up. I think there will be. It's fair to say that there won't be the Ultramarines version of Loken per se. It's not like I'm deliberately inventing a new cool Ultramarines captain who will be our hero in this, but there will be, I hope, some characters turning up that become very much embedded in the consciousness of Heresy readers because they're crucial. If I'm allowed to say, are you sticking with a human perspective for Know No Fear or going back to the Astartes? Know No Fear, because it's I said it's an Ultramarines book, and I am actually going for the full Adeptus Astartes or Legions Astartes viewpoint in this because their Ultramarine characters take a primary role in this. There are human characters in it anyway because it involves the world and the Imperial Army and stuff like that. It's a cast of hundreds, if not thousands. It's a big scope book. So there's lots of perspective. I think there's a general Space Marine perspective to this novel. I guess the question must be asked in relation to Prospero Burns, which was ostensibly a Space Wolves book, but the main character was human. Some people loved that, some people didn't love it quite so much because they thought that it should be a book that literally told them the story of the Battle of Prospero and wondered why we were dealing with another character there. Prospero Burns was written for very specific reasons. I thought it was important to have a human or quasi-human perspective to understand the Space Wolves because they are really very strange beings and they were best understood from an outsider's point of view. I also thought that there was no point just simply telling the story of the Battle of Prospero again because it's been told many times in the background material, but also because Graham, who was writing Thousand Suns at the time, was covering the story as well. I thought what was much more important was to tell the story about why the Battle of Prospero happened in the first place and what was motivating it. And I think there are some big surprises and shocks that only Horsa could have got to reveal. He's pretty much, I suppose, by the end, the most important person on that planet. So, Know No Fear is going to be Ultramarine centric, and I'm not doing that because some people bitched about Prospero Burns. I'm just doing it because it's a different book with a different thing, and I'm thinking, do you know what? Huge, great Space Marine bolter-porn might be the way to go this time, just for an alternative. Some of the most important characters are still going to be human, because let's face it, the Space Marines are there to create an Imperium for humans. People tend to forget somehow, weirdly, that the Imperium is not a human enterprise. They tend to think Space Marines may be the elite fighting units in the front line, but they're only there because the humans are building and constructing and maintaining this vast Imperium. So the humans are essentially much more important in the general scheme of things. So we must never forget their perspective. Anthony Rogers, any chance of somehow making Loken survive the heresy? Possibly. And do you think the Legion of the Damned could be the loyalists, or Legion of the Damned be the loyalists of the traitor legions banding together post-heresy to try and right wrongs by their own legions? Ooh. Good thing I've got a Horus Heresy meeting this week where we can throw these ideas about. Very interesting. Thank you for those. Answers will come. Edward Fortune asks, any plans to feature Alanius Pius in the Horus Heresy series? Wow. He is the kind of saint of the Imperial Guard. He's this mythical figure who apparently fought at the side of the Emperor at the Siege of Terror, and in fact tried to defend him. And therefore he's he's the sort of patron saint of the Imperial Guard. That would be very, very cool indeed. And as with all things heresy related like that, which features a very important character, I'm not really at liberty to say whether I or anybody else is developing that. I will say this, I think it would be a surprise if we got to the end of the Horus Heresy series and he hadn't appeared, or at least his myth hadn't been explained in some sort of way. Bastian Vergusen asks, shall we see a lot of Guilliman in No Fear? Yes, we shall. He's really got to be front and centre, hasn't he? This is his big moment. Will Ventanus be the Astartes' main character in this book? He will be one of them, because there are lots. Do we get to know more of the sizes of the legions? For example, how big are the Ultramarines really? How many were present at Ultramar to fight the World Bearers, and how many World Bearers attacked? Thanks a lot for answering. Well, Bastian, I noted this because you've asked this question actually separately on Facebook, where you seem very interested in the sizes and scales of the Legion. I think that's something that not all readers, but some readers, I think particularly with application to playing, are very, very interested in those actual facts and figures type things. We reckon the Ultramarines Legion at the time of the Horus Heresy was in excess of 250,000 Space Marines, plus ancillaries. So 250 actual combat Space Marines. 250,000 combat Space Marines, which is vast. Obviously pre-Codex, so huge. Of them, as a rough estimate, just in excess of 200,000 present at Calth, or the Viridian system at the time of the battle, because there would be others on detachment all through space, particularly the Ultramar sector, because they would be defending other places. So pretty much as many as practically could be in one place without them relinquishing their duties in other sort of defensive positions at present. We think that the World Bearers were probably pushing 150,000. They were pretty big as well. Of them, not quite so many will be at Calth, because their force was divided. We're still talking a lot. We're talking at least 50, 60,000 at least. What you've got to bear in mind that although the Ultramarines are fully supported by the Imperial Army in vast numbers, the World Bearers have got the advantage of surprise. They've also got the vastest number of cultists supporting them. So cult armies and demons. So although there are probably going to be between 3 and 4 times the number of Ultramarines to World Bearers directly, the World Bearers are fielding a much more considerable force in terms of A, sheer numbers, and B, killing power. It's going to be very interesting. Bastian goes on to ask, at what time does No Fear start? Just before the Battle of Calth, with the Ultramarines gathering and preparing to move into the Viridian system, or at some time before it? No Fear is very much a sort of Space Marines battles book for 30k. It begins a matter of a few days before the actual technical start of the battle, and then runs through chronologically just the battle. It is entirely focused on them with the mustering at Calth, which as I say, this is not retconning. There are different things to choose from, and what we've decided, this is what's going to become canonical. It's the Viridian system. Calth is in the Viridian system, and they're assembling there to strike against the potential Orc threat that will eventually threaten the Viridian system, rather than going to the Viridian or Veriden system as another place. It appears in some versions, in some sources, in some other versions in others. We had to decide, choose one, and that's the one we chose. So it really is, it's almost literally like a novel where we start the stopwatch at the beginning and just tick our way through the story. Chronologically, very fast moving, and with a sort of time counter running in the corner of the screen. Rusu Dragos asks, "Dear Dan, I bet you get this question asked a lot, but it never hurts to try, so here goes. When will we get more information and possibly some extras on the Emperor of Mankind?" Mentioned just a moment ago. Would you like to write about him? So, the Emperor plays a fundamentally vast role in the course of the Horus Heresy stories. So yes, he's going to be there. He only takes sort of centre stage later on, the Battle of the Webway, obviously the Siege of Terror. And he's one of those figures that I think we've got to be very sparing about. We don't want him front and centre all the time, because I think it takes away the mystique and mystery of him, because he's such an extraordinary figure. He's naturally got to be centre stage some of the time, and we're developing ways of doing that I think will be satisfying without ruining that mystery. I certainly want to write about him, which is your other question there. So yes, we can't tell the story without having him in it. So what we're doing is developing, I think we've hit upon really interesting ways of delivering that, interesting mechanism that actually have a bearing on some of the other Primarchs. Actually, it's something that you will see through several books. Unremembered Empire actually is one of them. Some of the things that happen there, we will start to scrutinise this nature of the characteristics of the various Primarchs, and therefore by extension the Emperor himself. It's probably worth pointing out that you can friend me on Facebook if you wanted to, at Dan Abnett Primary Club. You can follow me on Twitter at Dan Abnett Club. That's all one word, Dan Abnett Club. Or for a more casual approach, you can follow me and Nick on Twitter at Vincent Abnett, all one word. And my blog is at danabnett.com. I'm sure many of you who've asked me questions already know. Thank you for all the questions. I look forward to talking to you again.